Hello guys, this is Rays, and we're bringing you God, I don't even know what part. I think it's like part 9 or 10. I'll get the right title on the video, or the right number on the video. But we're back. It's been a while, and I am terribly sorry for that. I don't really know what happened. I guess I let time slip by, but I don't know. Anyways, we're back to this. All right, we're doing HUD editing stuff again. Believe it or not, I'm here in the flesh. I'm not actually dead. I am actually a living person, and we're gonna do some HUD editing today. So since it's been like 2 weeks since I've made the last video, I'm gonna go off the assumption that all of you guys have already caught up. You know, if you were just starting a few weeks ago, you're all the way up to where I am right now in the tutorial, maybe even farther, maybe you branched out, and that's pretty awesome. And because of that, the rest of this tutorial should, like all of these remaining videos, they might kind of give you a little bit of guidance, maybe some stylistic things to kind of like let you know how you might want to go about doing things, or maybe if you don't know what file to edit, then I can kind of point you in the right direction. But you know animations, you know how to do adjustments, you know how to move panels, you know how to use the VGUI draw tree. Like, you have all these tools in your arsenal that you pretty much know how to do what you want. It's just a matter of knowing what it is you need to edit. And so a lot of the heavy stuff is out of the way. I think the last kind of, I guess, somewhat difficult thing to kind of mess with is what we're going to be doing today, and that's partially why I'm loading into my original HUD here, Raid's HUD. You might be thinking, well, why is this guy using this HUD? Well, let me show you why we're using the HUD. It's because of this little guy right here, little scout man. But this has been kind of like a really sought after thing. People have asked me how to do it, like, pretty much every day since Valve put this out, the whole 3D player model thing. But I'm going to go over how to move around this panel and implement it where you might want to be, like where you want it to be, and then how to move the little model within that panel. And the reason I loaded into my HUD Race HUD is because since I've already made the proper adjustments to make it how I want, it's easier for me to show you guys like how kind of the angle measurements and stuff work based off something that's already been pre-done. However, after I show you how it works, we will go into the other HUD and make the edits ourselves. But for right now, we're going to look at this just kind of as an example. So first things first, the file you need to edit is, what is that file? It is the file HUD player class.res. You'll see it right here in the flesh. We're going to open that up. And it's a pretty big file. It's like about 300 lines of code, but that's alright. Because a lot of this stuff is kind of repetitive. Like, once you know what one section of code does, you pretty much have 100 lines like already knocked out, because they all do the same thing. So first things first, this is one of those things that you can adjust in HUDlayout.res, and I mentioned it in another video, but just in case you guys need a refresher since it has been a while, there's two indicators that it is a unique file in which that it's not included in HUDlayout.res. The first being that you can see here the first section of code matches the name of the file, and I mentioned that before. That comes up also in HUDplayerHealth.res, I believe. And second of all, you'll see that if I open up HUDlayout.res and I do a search for HUD player health, see, we don't find anything. Oh, sorry, HUD player class, and it's still the same thing. Like, we still don't find anything. And that's a good indicator that we edit the panel in the file itself. So I've already made kind of the adjustments that I want. I believe what I did was I did an alternate thing that you can sometimes do if you don't like dealing with panels, which is I made the panel take up the entire screen. I've mentioned this before, but if you make the width F0 and then the tall value 480, it does take up the entirety of the screen as long as the X and Y positions are set to 0. And that's kind of a good thing to do in this case. Like, you don't have to do it like that. But for what I was doing when I made Raise HUD, it was good because it allowed me to pretty much move that little 3D guy wherever I wanted. However, I will say that it's probably just going to be a better general practice to position the frame or the panel just like you had done with all your other stuff. But this is an alternate way to go about it, and that's what I did whenever I made my HUD. Okay, so first things first. You'll see this stuff here. And before they released the 3D model update, the HUD player health file is like about this long. It was like 100 lines of code. It was all this, and then that was it. But when they released the 3D thing, it made things a little more complicated. You have all of this extra stuff. You'll see FOV and like all of these different animations and like angles and origins and like it's It's really dumb, but that's okay. I'm gonna kind of step you through it and show you how all of that works in a second. But let's not forget about this right here. So what this stuff is here, player status class image, player status spy image, and player status spy outline image is. These are the big ones. Again, everything that you see after that is, of course, a background and another background, and then the 3D stuff starts. So we're not using backgrounds, at least in my HUD. But you guys know how backgrounds work, similar to the team colored indicator, or the ammo count team colored indicator that we threw in at the bottom of our experimental HUD, or the image panels that we've implemented of a specific color. This is pretty much what the backgrounds are. So it's really your choice. You can get rid of the backgrounds. You can put in your own backgrounds. Again, that's kind of one of those things where you can just import an image panel, modify the wide and tall values, and make it how you want. But we didn't use that in this. But these guys, these are the big ones. And what these things are is these pretty much correspond to... oh, I didn't do it right. It's in the options here. Because the 3D thing, you have to remember, isn't on all the time. See, if the player has this thing unchecked, use player model and player class HUD, then, well, I guess my HUD's not the greatest example because I have it disabled. But you have to remember that, I guess there's an example. There is that static image, and if you don't know what that is, whenever you're disguised as a spy, or whenever you, like by default, whenever you're just playing a class, I removed it on my HUD, so it's not a good example. But when you're just playing the game, there is this static image if you don't have the 3D thing enabled. And these first few values at the top of the file do the positioning for all of those things. And we'll do more of that once we're actually working with our other HUD, because, like I said, it's not a good example in my HUD because I removed them, but you might want them in yours. Anyways, we'll get to that in a second. But that's just pretty standard stuff, Adjust the X and Y position, put it where you want. You can change the wide and tall values if you really want to make it bigger, smaller, or you can just turn it off. It's up to you. I turned it off. But again, we'll get more into that. The reason we're on our HUD is because we wanted to focus on the 3D aspects. Let me go ahead and turn that guy back on. And you'll see this little guy right here. He's facing, I guess from my point of view, he's looking left. He's got his gun out. The little, the heart is going around his head. He's got the scroll on his shoulder. It's pretty incredible. But that's all controlled on the second half of the file, class model panel. And basically what all of this stuff is this is more positioning. This is like the root positioning. So like if I screw around with this, change it from 185 to like 208, it actually moves the panel. And I'm not going to check just because you guys already know how to do like adjustments and stuff. But if I wanted, I could go check the panel, and you'd see that the panel would move. But this is the thing that adjusts the 3D, like it's the frame. And I guess I will show you actually. VGUI draw tree 1. Static, TF root, HUD player status, HUD player class model panel. Gotta extend this thing out. It's pretty big. Oh. And highlight selected, and there we go. We've got our little highlighted box on this thing. And again, I'm not gonna do it again. But if you moved it, then it would move that. And unfortunately, regardless of what you make the wide and tall values, you can't. That doesn't really give you more room to work with in terms of like having the player on the screen, because you'll see that regardless of what I do, if I change the wide or the tall values, instead of just simply making you a bigger panel to work with, it actually like makes the image dude himself larger, so it scales proportionally, which means that it's really difficult to keep things from not getting cut off, because if you just change the wide and tall values, all it will do is it will scale the player model to accommodate for that, and that's kind of frustrating. But I guess you can use it if you really want to get like a ballpark estimate for how you want, like the size you want your guy. But for this, we're just gonna leave the default. Kind of frustrating. It's another one of those Valve things that you can't do much about, but you do what you can. And then here we get into the model stuff. You can ignore all this. That's not really important for what we're doing. X, Y positioning, obviously, or how you do the positioning within the panel. Z position if you have any potential overlaps. But wide and tall we typically leave pretty standard. And you'll see that I'm skipping all of this because you don't need to do, like, you don't need to mess with any of that. Even though you see this frame stuff and you think, man, I've got to, like, adjust the player model, like, this is the stuff, you're skipping over it. Actually, that's not the player stuff, because all of the individual class stuff is right here. And another thing about this is that you can actually make an adjustment, like, for the player model based on the class you're currently playing. So, like, for instance, if you like the angle that you have for the scout but not the pyro, then you can just make it different if you wanted. In fact, if I wanted to, I could have, like, the scout face forward and all the rest of them facing back. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a cool thing, but it can create issues. But anyways, let's explain what these things mean. So this is kind of hard to do because I'm gonna have to try to explain something in 3 dimensions. But essentially, what origin means is if it's got the prefix origin, it means that it's talking about the camera pointing at the scout, and then the angles here correspond with how that camera is pointed. So for instance, I believe if we adjust Y, it deals with the left and right movement. So like if we make this 17 instead of 7, you'll see that the scout moved a little bit to the left, and that's because that controls this I guess this horizontal movement here. But you'll see that he kept the same posture and everything because we didn't move the camera angle, we just moved the camera position. So that's one thing explained. And if you think it's the same here, like the Y means the same thing, you might get kind of lost. So let me try to explain all 6 of these things. Actually, all 7. Exposition kind of deals with the forward-back movement because you have to realize we're in a 3-dimensional plane. So I'll try to sketch it out in Paint, but it's gonna be really crude. Imagine we've got this 3-dimensional box here. This is 3 dimensions. We've got our, well, obviously this is our X or this is our Y because that's how we were sliding the little guy from left to right. Our Z position's actually going to be up, which is also kind of weird, and then I believe the X goes back. So you'll see here that if I adjust the X origin to something higher, so instead of 105 I change it to 115, you'll see that the scout actually kind of goes back a little bit, which is kind of weird, but it's something. Yeah, see, like that's 115, and if I put it to 105, you'll see that he gets closer. And it looked like he moved a bit. That was my bad. That's because we saw that origin change there. But you'll see, so now, like, if I want this scout to be farther back, I can change that 105 to 125, and there he goes off into the distance. So you can use that to kind of control the size of the player model that you're working with. And then just to confirm Z, we've got this negative value. I know it's all crazy because that's how I have my angles set up. And let me give you guys a disclaimer after I make this change here. Yeah, and of course, that was actually correct. Z is our up and down. So that's Z, this is Y, and that's X. And if you start playing with the values on your screen and you think, well, this guy's lying to me, that's not right. The reason being is it's really hard to get coordinates right in 3 dimensions. And I think what I accidentally did, like I'm going to be completely honest with you, is that I flipped the box upside down. So if... we'll check when we do the edit in a second, but there's a chance that because the Z value is negative, everything's like completely flipped and screwed over. So honestly, it'll really come down to a lot of guess and check and playing with it, but luckily it is something you can do a HUD reload scheme for. That's fine. But let's go ahead and fix this. Let's go ahead and fix all this back to the default. Back in the game. Alright, so we've got our adjustment. And now we can adjust our angles. So with our current setup here, we have a negative 17 angle, and I believe if I make it more negative, it actually tilts the scout forward. So we were talking about this X position being, or this X-axis being like the forward back. It also, you can kind of see it as like a hinge. So like the camera's pointing at him like from this way looking up, or you know, that way looking down at him, and it's kind of a hinge, and that allows you to kind of like rotate the scout. In fact, I'm sure if I made it high enough, I could probably flip him completely upside down. We'll even try that just for fun. Let's try like 200. Nope, he's off the screen. He's probably upside down. But there's that. Then we've got our X and Y angles, so we're going to adjust that just to see what that is. If we increase that, what does that do? Okay, that's our turning mechanism, and again that makes sense because this is the Y-axis, so you can see the angle here on the Y-axis is this little rotational thing. So like if the scout were in the middle here, let's assume this is our scout. That's a sorry looking guy. Alright, well, we're gonna pretend that's the scout. Yay. then this would be the camera rotating around him, and that's what this Y position is of the angles. And then that means our Z position should be the only thing left, which is our side-to-side rotation. So our Y was circle, our X was the forward and backward tilt, and then our Z is going to be this this tilt that like tilts the dude on his side. So let me double check just to make sure I didn't make an edit wrong somewhere. So if we do this, I think I said Z, right? Yes, if we increase this from -10 to 20, see there you start to see that sideways tilt. And again, it's something that you really have to play with, and we'll see in a second whenever I switch back to the other HUD. I'll actually do that right now. But it's a lot of guess and check, and it can get really kind of complicated. So if you get frustrated with it, I just say cope with it, hang in there, things will get better. But it is definitely something that is confusing, especially if you're not familiar with working on things in 3 dimensions. Let me go ahead and get this out. We'll get our custom HUD back, throw it in there, and hopefully, hoping that we can adjust our 3-dimensional model with not too much work. And we'll play around with it a little bit, but I think I actually like the raise HUD positioning, the positioning on my HUD for this HUD as well. I think it'll fit in a good spot as long as the player model does not overlap with the ammo count. And so we'll do a double check. We'll make the adjustments if we need to, but we'll play around with the 3D guy to kind of give you guys kind of some bearings, and then we're just gonna copy paste that into. Save time, and also because I already like the location of it. Okay, so we need to leave that on, but here we are in the flesh. And again, we want to make those adjustments. We have our HUD player class file in here. And I think by default, let's get rid of that, we don't want that. But I think by default, the panel might already be the entire screen. It looks like that is the case because I haven't done any edits to this file yet, and so I think you won't even have to worry about panels in terms of the HUD player class, because it already took care of that for you. It just removed that barrier. So again, the player status class images is the thing we can't see right now because we have our 3D model on. But first things I want to do is I want to get rid of that background. I'm not digging it, and I kind of like the minimalistic HUD we have going here with the boxes, so we're just going to bail really quick. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can set our wide and tall to 0. We don't want any backgrounds, so we'll just get rid of both of these. Boom, that's gone, and alright, so we're already halfway home. So let's take a look and see what the 3D origins are by default, and we don't want min mode, but again, that's another example that if you really want to like adjust things, then you can. Oh, something I forgot to explain, FOV. By default it's 25, I would say not to mess with it, because basically it's the camera's FOV and how he views the scout, or whatever class you're playing, and if you make it something way too high, then like it'll start to like distort things. So like if I make this scout's FOV 45, you'll see that like his legs look huge compared to his head because the camera has like a really weird perspective and everything's all out of whack. So I would say just leave it alone FOV. If you really want to get like bold, you can play with it, I guess, but it's not what we're doing. So we're gonna do that. And again, let's see if we can confirm our things that we said earlier here. So we're gonna change our X, and that should move him back. Alright, so yeah, it looks like everything's gonna end up working out here. Y moves him side to side. Alright, yeah, okay, cool. So all that stuff I explained earlier does apply with the angles. So hopefully that'll actually be somewhat of a good guideline to you. I don't know if I did a good job with the paint image. There's a lot of crap on the screen here, but maybe you got something out of that, I don't know. And yeah, so all you really have to do once you've got this far is, again, you can do the backgrounds how you want. You can have it team colored, all that jazz. That's cool. But we just need to get this section of the model panel. So since we've covered pretty much all the 3D stuff, let me go ahead and we'll go back to the reset thing really quick. I'm just gonna go ahead and rip it off because I think I like the positioning of that like so much, and I think it'll fit so well into this HUD that I don't even think we're gonna need to do anything about it. There we go, HUD player class. And we're just going to copy paste everything in the 3-dimensional image section. So that starts for me on line 99. And let's That's a bad coding practice, actually. There we go. We'll get everything up until line 284. So then we'll get rid of all this. Find our line. Where is it? Appears to be... It's a little bit farther down because we've got some of this extra min mode lines and crap in here. But we'll go ahead and place that in. Do a save, make sure it works. And alright, cool, we've got the scout over there now. That's actually looking pretty nice. And you're pretty much set. So once you have that done, let's go tackle that 2D image guy. So we need to first turn this off. And if you guys were a little confused about what I was talking about earlier, hopefully this will kind of clear some things up. Where is it? It's hard to read this font. Right, use player model and class HUD. There we go. And yeah, there we go. We've got that static picture of whatever class you're playing. See, it doesn't match your loadout or anything. It's two-dimensional, but it's just on the screen, and it doesn't match where the other thing is. So there's a few options that that you can do here. You can get rid of it completely, which is what I did on my HUD. But if you want to keep it in, I would recommend just to, like, for good practice, to kind of make it around the same size and location as the model. So I think we'll we'll actually go ahead and leave it in the HUD. We might take it out in a future episode, but just for terms of examples, we'll go ahead and leave it in. So we're going to use the positioning that we used for our class model panel, which is remember our 3D thing. Go back to player status self image, find our XY, paste it in, and we'll see where that puts us. A little bit high, right, because that's the top of the panel. So now it's simply a matter of adjusting, making our Y position a little bit higher. So 248 needs to be what? Since we're on reverse, and that should be like 95 or something. Yeah, okay, we're getting close. Make it like 85. 70 should be like right about perfect. And alright, cool. So there's that. This guy you can again adjust with the wide tall. If you want to squish him, you can make him like 1. And he's like a pixel in width. That's funny though. We don't want to do that. So we'll just go ahead and leave that there for now. We might go in and get rid of that later. And then the other thing, it's kind of a hassle, is that you'll see that the spy here, he's got his little whatever, but whenever I disguise as a different class, it'll move to a different location. Well, actually maybe not. Maybe they fixed that, I don't know. Player status spy image. Oh yes, there it is, right. Right. It's right here. See, because when you disguise, it changes your current thing that you're disguised as, but then you got this other guy over here. And that's just saying, hey, I'm disguised and stuff. And it's kind of silly, but you can move that too if you want. Since we haven't gotten to the spy panel yet, I think we're just going to leave that be. But it might be a good practice to actually, we'll go ahead and comment that. We'll be like, we'll come back to during spy panel. So we'll go ahead and save that, and we'll adjust that later. And then, of course, this last thing, the spy outline image, I believe it's in the exact same position as this. It just is that thing that like is outlined when you cloak. So like if I cloak, you'll see now there's this oh, it's not a good example. Oh, it's right here. You've got this outline of what you're currently disguised as, and I don't know. It's kind of a big mess. You'll run yourself into you'll run yourself crazy doing that sort of thing. And so for the time being, like I said, we're not gonna do too much with it. But let me check the min mode to make sure I'm not giving you guys false info here. Okay, I'm giving you false information. This is player status spy image. It is it's kind of silly because it appears it's controlled actually by this player status class image. So the outline is obsolete. Yeah, because the outline is actually the outline that appears on your dude when he's cloaked, and that's controlled by HUD player health. They must have screwed that up during, I don't know, one of their many updates that messed with the HUD player class file. But I'll double check and get back with you guys. So if there's any false information being spread, I'll try to notify you at the beginning of the video. Be like, oh man, this guy that hasn't made videos in forever is being an idiot. But yeah, so there's that. And I think we're gonna pretty much call it here. There's not a whole lot we need to do. Obviously, the cloak thing's overlapping, but we haven't done cloak meters yet. We haven't done any of the meters yet, and we'll get our chance to do that soon enough. So hopefully you guys won't get lost in the 3D thing. I think that's honestly the most complicated thing that we're doing in this episode. But you guys know pretty much at this point that you can just go. Like, if you know what you're doing, you have all the skills now pretty much to just do it. So don't let me hold you back. I'm still going to be trying to do these like on a video per video basis, just in case there's some special exceptions on certain files, but generally speaking, that's about it. You guys know everything. You know all your tools, so go create. Anyways, hopefully I'll be able to do this semi-regularly again. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.